which brings us to your workshop that will take place in May in Budapest, and it has a very, very promising title, The Four Cs. What can participants expect? What's going to happen during this workshop? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
It'd be my great pleasure to do so. This workshop is a celebration of tradition and invention. So when I say tradition, I mean that the four C's is mentioned as a topic in the Neijing, the classic text, which is at least 2, if not 3,000 years old. When I say invention, I mean that really during the 3,000, 2,000 years before I was born, nothing really happened. So it's mentioned in some of the texts, some of the points are mentioned here, but nobody explains how to use it. What is it practically and clinically? So that was the task I set myself around about somewhere between 2010, 2012, I don't remember exactly. So I started to research it with my students, my closest students, and then I took it out to other students in different countries. So it's been to about 6 countries by now. And each group of people adds something to my knowledge and to the group of knowledge. So I'm expecting exactly the same thing to happen in Budapest. And in fact, I was there in October. We did a small taster event, and I got some marvelous feedback, which added to my own understanding of what the 4 C's are. So it's ongoing, it's evolving, it's developing, and it's a completely modern thing, but it's rooted in the very, very oldest of traditions. So the 4 C's is mentioned in the Neijing when the Yellow Emperor asks his physician, Chibo, what are the 4 C's? And Chibo says, oh, I'm so glad you asked. I'm going to tell you about it. The 4 C's are, as the meridians flow through the body, they flow into the 4 C's, which really sparked my imagination. And I thought, well, what does it mean? And as I looked into it, as my students fed back to me, and as I start to use it with my patients, I understood something very, very important. The 4 C's are not horizontal, like you imagine on the world, like on the globe or anything like that. No, they're vertical. They are levels. And they represent levels of our psyche and of our physique. So, for example, the C of Qi is this, what we're using at the moment to communicate with. It's active, it's outward. The C of nutrition is inward. When we begin to rest, we begin to sit back, kick back, daydream, meditate, whatever, just this little relaxation. That's the C of nutrition, when we begin to generate energy from inside.
Okay.
Going deeper, we have the C of blood. That's much deeper nutrition. It takes a longer time to rebuild and to degenerate, of course. So much more chronic symptoms we find there, much slower to build up, but much more power. Slower, doesn't move as fast. Go down all the way to the bedrock, the ocean floor. This is the Sea of Marrow. The Sea of Marrow moves very, very slowly. The Sea of Marrow is the one that's really affected when people get burnt out.
Okay, right.
The bedrock energy is affected. So to build this up, it takes time.
It's so fascinating. And how, so are you going to show the participants how to connect this system of 4 C's into the practice of shiatsu? So how this concept can be applied? So they're going to have a hands-on practice, or how can we imagine this?
It's all about hands-on practice. When I teach, it's all about hands-on. The theory is woven into the practice. So you understand the theory through the practice. And we do the practice in 2 ways. One of them is shiatsu kata, and there's 4 different kata for each, one for each C. There's also an extra kata for the whole journey from the Sea of Qi down into the Sea of Marrow.
In this vertical manner.
Yeah, selected. It's like a loop, in fact, goes around the body. And the people who were with me in October already did some of that. Now, so that's 5 kata incomplete. So that's why we have 3 days, because we need 1 session for each kata. But there's also a Qigong program that matches all of this. And this came while I was teaching. I think it was about 10 years ago almost. I had a retreat in the winter of Sweden, which is very, very dark. If anybody knows about Sweden, north, dark, retreat, very quiet, very deep energy. And I had just a few students, but they were all very, very experienced. And they started doing the treatments and they didn't need my help. So I was completely superfluous. I was free. And my body began to move. It started to do movements, which I didn't really understand until I then began to look at what the movements were, what they represented, and which parts of the body were moving and how. and I understood that my body was teaching me to do Qigong movements for the 4 Cs. So there's 4 Qigong mini katas, so 1 long kata. So we'll do that first. And then each C, we do the Qigong first, and then we do the kata for that. So we can see it from both directions, and that feeds into a whole. And then, of course, there'll be time for questions, and they need to feedback on the more theoretical aspects, the more practical aspects, the more clinical aspects, and even the diagnostic aspects. So it's a very, very complete picture, and it's very useful. And in terms of the kata themselves, these are things that I've been working with for 20, 30 years. So they've crystallized into these 4 kata, and they're all quite complete in themselves. So what we'll do, of course, is we'll film them, and then people have them on record for themselves to refer to afterwards.
Wow, very nice.
Like,
very nice.
It's 4 zip files, basically, is what it is. But each zip file opens up to 4 or 5 different aspects of treatment. So it'll be everything from completely still, nothing, to quite active, stretchy movement, acrobatic kind of shiatsu. So the whole range, everything in between.
Fantastic. Thank you for the clarification. I think people will be really inspired to participate after, hearing all that you said so far. Thanks, really.